guys are. We are very excited to continue our monthly webinar series this month. It is my pleasure to present 5 students who are all over the US doing different degrees, different concentrations, different experiences, and how did they end up in the place that they are in. This is the story of them. I know that college application is a huge process. A lot of people get stressed about that. And again, as we call it, there is no second chances. Once you pick a college and you're stuck with it. So it's not just about the degrees that you want to do, but it's also about the environment. It's also about the culture of that school that makes your students successful in that particular college. So our goal through DRIPBL is to give you guys a first in-person insight of these students' colleges and their degree programs that they are going through. So what they will do is they'll introduce themselves, and one at a time, they'll talk about what they are doing, how did they get there, and a very brief description of how did they end up in that college and what was their college application cycle like. Okay, so without taking a lot of time, Ben, I think you are up first.
Yep. All right. There we go. Sorry, I couldn't find the button. All right. Anyways, my name is Benjamin Jackson. I'm from Gilbert, Arizona. I went to Brophy and Gilbert Classical Academy for high school. And now I'm at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland. So a little bit about me. I'm in their biomedical engineering program. I'm on the 3+1 track, meaning I'm going to get my Master of Science as well in biomedical engineering when I graduate after 4 years. Hopefully that kind of gives me a small advantage going into medical school and applying to medical school as I'm on the pre-medicine path. Also kind of aligning with that, I'm going to make a little jump. I currently serve in the National Guard under the 104th Medical Company. I kind of chose this just because I wanted a little bit of different experience than like college usually gives, especially because I guess Johns Hopkins is kind of not isolated, but it's like far away from like Phoenix, Arizona, and I have a lot of hobbies kind of that I've built, like such as like drone building and kind of working on just like generic engines with like lawnmowers and motorcycles and whatnot. So it's something to kind of get out and about. Especially because it's a big city, it's kind of hard to have a car, so I think that's always something you want to keep in mind. Um, but I kind of got here through having, I think my parents were definitely a very big influence on me. But I've always kind of loved engineering. My dad was an engineer, my mom was a doctor, so it kind of fit perfectly kind of in that slot. But essentially, along this route, a lot of the pictures that you see are groups of people that I've worked with over time. You'll notice that a good amount of these people are Japanese. It was because I worked in Barrow Neurological Institute, which one of the labs in there is called the Hashimoto Lab, and it's mostly Japanese postdocs. I interned there my junior high school year, and uh, I guess was now employed there last summer. And so I think it's very important to maintain those connections, and like even though it's a very different culture from like what I'm used to, we got along. We went on mountain biking rides. We went out to dinner a lot of times, and we learned a lot. I guess together, and I'm still kind of reviewing papers for them. I've gotten a lot more experience on that, so it's always kind of staying in touch with people and yeah, just keeping all the slots open. The top left picture is my National Guard friends and RTC friends. I've done a lot of coding with them as well. They're actually all computer science majors. And so biomedical engineering is actually a lot of computer science as well, if you're interested in that. Um, so again, it's really the connections. Like I was talking to a friend yesterday, and he was talking about some other guy, and they were saying like, yeah, this guy, he's only friends with people like who he wants to like use to further his career, and that's really the wrong way to look at it. But you should never feel bad about asking like, hey, would you want to work on this project with me, or hey, would you like to look into this? Because I think that's really where things stem from. So anyway, kind of moving kind of into like the specific fields, I guess. I'm currently doing research at Johns Hopkins with data science. We essentially just took a bunch of strings of like text through like cochlear implants and saw exactly how those, I guess, transcriptions could be interpreted like accurately, and how that would kind of differ for, I guess, like people that have like accents while speaking, and then the standard North American accent. So I've kind of combined those. That's more just a paper thing, like creating a paper, just having some background and experience that I was able to use while working at the Hashimoto lab. That's still pending. And I think that wraps it up for about me. It's just kind of been a combination of a bunch of like a melting pot of like interests and kind of influences. And that's now I'm here. Should I add anything else, I guess?
And that's amazing. We will take questions later, but I have one question for you. How did you end up, how many colleges did you apply to and why Johns Hopkins?
Yeah, so I applied to, well, I drafted the applications for about 13, 14 colleges. And I actually applied Johns Hopkins early decision too, which I've actually met a lot of people who have applied through that decision. I think that Alex, one of my friends and a guy that some of you guys might know, he applied there as well, and I believe he got an ED2. So I feel like that's kind of like a sweet spot for a lot of these schools is knowing like I don't know, looking at the stats and kind of analyzing it and seeing, where can I fit in. But yeah, essentially, I chose Hopkins over like West Point, which was like a very strict military school, and I figured that wasn't exactly for me since I'm not sure if I'm going to stay like in the military for that long or not. But also, it's really you want to look at that school and you want to look at what it's known for. So like if I would have not gotten biomedical engineering at Johns Hopkins, I would have probably considered other schools over that and maybe cited like finances because these private schools they're getting very expensive, like as the issue. So yeah, I'd just say make sure you make the most out of the school, and if like your school is not good in that particular area that you're interested in, I wouldn't just rely on the general school name for that. I would rely on like we have the Whiting School of Engineering within Johns Hopkins University. That's very different than like whatever like the liberal arts section of Johns Hopkins might be. One's like known to be much higher of the other, and I think you also have to like consider those like smaller schools within that college. All right.
Thank you, Ben. We will take questions later. I'm going to read off of it. So let's make sure that everybody gets a chance to present, and then we will have it open up to people who have come in.
Right
So
on.
I think Srikanya, are you next?
Yes,
Yeah, there
yes,
you
I
go.
am. So, hi everyone. My name is Srikanya. I go to Tulane University. Do you think you can go to the next slide? Thank you. Yeah, so I'm a freshman at Tulane University. So, this is quite new to me as well, but the application process is.
ऐसे ही प्रदक्षिणा नाथ का कुछ स्टूडेंट्स लाई हुई है अपने साथ आठ सब others.
I'm just gonna wait for just a second. Okay, perfect. Cool. So while the college experience is a little bit newer to me, the college application process like basically just happened, so I have a lot of familiarity with that. But first, I wanted to start off by saying I'm a STAMP scholar at Tulane. So I'm here on a full ride, and essentially the STAMP program is a national program in which around 250 kids get selected um, across multiple universities out of around 400 to 500,000 applicants for this program, and you get full rides at different schools. So this is a program that's also available at like University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and then in Louisiana, there's also like LSU. This is popular in U of A and schools like that as well. But as a STAMP scholar, we have programmatic engagement with other STAMP scholars across universities, and we're also given stipends for different things we want to do, like if we want money for research conferences, travel, and different stuff like that. So that's kind of what being a STAMP scholar is. And I'm still exploring and figuring out what I can do with my money and stuff like that. But yeah, so at Tulane, I'm currently a cell bio and computer science major, and I might minor in business. And that's another thing that draw me to Tulane, because while it's not specifically a liberal arts school, they the academics in Tulane are a bit more flexible in the way that it's very easy to double major, triple major, and add a lot of different types of minors and stuff like that. And as someone who's very interested in like several fields and likes to learn new things, I knew that kind of flexibility in academics was something I wanted to prioritize, which kind of led me to Tulane. But my academic interests are mostly in computational biology, which is why I'm taking a bio and CS major. And this kind of manifested through research I did at Arizona State University as a junior into senior year regarding AI protein modeling research. Essentially, I was seeing if AI models were able to determine intermediate states of protein synthesis, because this would give us more insight on protein synthesis and the development of proteins, which could allow for different like drug treatments for diseases which regard proteins like Alzheimer's and things like that. But so this is just a beginning research. And then out of that research and that experience, I'm now in the TRIA program at Tulane, which is the Tulane Research and Innovation Award. Essentially, I'm working in my professor's lab, Dr. Gao, and we're doing AI-based protein engineering for improved pharmaceutical properties. So basically just changing proteins, mutating proteins for specific pharmaceutical properties, and also there's a lot of gene clustering involved. I'm just getting used to this lab as well. Just finished all of my like trainings to even work in the lab, so I'm excited to see where that ends up. Since I did just come out of high school, I wanted to talk a bit about my extracurriculars and stuff and kind of give perspective on the fact that all of your extracurriculars don't necessarily have to be modeled after your academic interests. Like there's this kind of perception of having a spike application, which I feel is not very conducive at times. Like you can still show colleges that you're passionate and interested about different things without it being specifically to your academic interest. You just have to be passionate and be able to story tell in your application essay. So that's why it's important to really care about certain things. So in high school, my extracurriculars were Model United Nations. I was a reproductive justice advocate. I did archery. I was the president of my Math Honor Society. And I was really passionate about these different things. And Model United Nations obviously went to different state conferences for reproductive justice advocacy. I went to the national level. I lobbied, different things like that for archery, participated in national competitions. And I was the president of my Mu Alpha Theta chapter because, I mean, I like math and that was something I was super interested in. So as you can see, like, over time, you'll also see that when you're like, I guess, in the freshman year of high school to into your senior year, your activities will kind of condense, but it's important to put a lot of time and effort into them. In university now, I'm already in, like, I've already started to join some clubs. So I'm currently in the Tulane Undergraduate Assembly, which is the student government, and I'm the recognized student organization council co-chair. Essentially, I help register new organizations and help advocate for new different organizations. And this kind of built off of my high school experiences when I was in different organizations, and I also helped build clubs in our school. And because dance is also something I'm super passionate about. You can see a picture of me dancing on stage. That's pretty recent. I joined the Jazba dance team. So another thing I've noticed, and this is something Ben also had mentioned, that which is why he said he joined the National Guard and things like that. He built a few interests in high school, and it's kind of so important to cultivate them and expand on them, because that's kind of brings out your liveliness outside of these academics and give you another creative outlet. So that's something I also knew I needed to prioritize in university too. So that's something I've immediately gotten started on. And I'm going to obviously join more organizations, but that's kind of where I started. And I think a few things I wanted to highlight in the college application process is I know it can be very stressful because you're thinking about deadlines and things, but I think the best way to like approach this process is like a lot more reflective thinking and just typing away. Sometimes like if there's an essay question that's like kind of difficult for you, I usually like to break it down, and instead of sitting at my laptop, I just like to, I don't know, work on some chores or just dance, and then suddenly something will pop up in my head and I just write it down and write it down. There's no need to like sit down at your laptop and just crunch for 3 hours straight. That's not, in my opinion, that wasn't the most productive for me. So just using different creative opportunities to let your brain flowing is what I found super useful. And another thing is like, don't be afraid to apply for different colleges. I also did apply to schools like Johns Hopkins and things like that. And I did get into, so I might have gone to Johns Hopkins, but at the end of the day, being a STEM scholar at Tulane kind of outweighed some of the other different academic opportunities at other schools. So also making that decision, like Rachna had mentioned, is extremely important. But I think that kind of summarizes a little bit about me and my perspective and experience with college. And let me know if there's anything else I should add.
Thank you, Srikanya. I think that's a really good insight into STEM scholars. A lot of kids don't even know that those kind of scholarships exist. And for you, I remember when you posted that, I'm like, oh my God, there are different ways to get those scholarships outside. And I've been to your Arangetram. We're very close. I think I've known you since you were like, what, 3 years old?
Yeah.
But yeah, you've come a long way, and to be able to get all the extracurriculars in, but retain that major interest, right? And
Yeah.
digging deep into it, that is what exactly matters in college applications. They don't want to see a wide range of things, but one or two particular things that you have dug deep into. So kudos to you on that for sure. Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead. I think the next one is Nevin.
Yes. All right, hi guys. My name is Nevin Hanford. I'm from Chandler, Arizona. I'm a fourth year at University of California, Berkeley. So like every Berkeley student, or if you guys don't know, that's also Cal. It's a little bit confusing for some because that's their sports team and Berkeley's the academic, but they're the same exact school. I applied to Stanford. That was my dream school and got rejected. Almost everyone here applied to Stanford and got rejected. But I absolutely love it here, and I'll kind of float and float my own school. I think it's the best public university in the country. It's awesome here. When I applied to schools, I applied to a lot of California schools. That's where I kind of knew I wanted to end up. And when I was touring, I think the biggest thing is just like your immediate reaction of how you feel on campus. And when I arrived in Berkeley, I just loved it. I loved the vibe, and I felt like I could live there. And so that's a big part I think that a lot of people don't ignore is that you're going to spend 4 years of your life here. And so like the community that you're in, the city that you're in means a lot. And I think especially with jobs and networking, it means much more because you're going to get jobs in that area. You're going to have research in that area, and enjoying that is going to make it all the better. So I originally came into college wanting to do research. I did a ton of research in high school with Miss Nath, Rachna. She gave me a bunch of experiences, did some protein modeling stuff at ASU, and then did some fluorescence microscopy stuff that gave me a lot of, I think, experience coming into college. Just some baseline levels so that you're familiar with terms and stuff. But don't feel like you need to have a bunch of research. Like in college, you're gonna have tons of opportunities, especially if you take lab classes in college, because then you meet those professors and their main job is research. So whenever you go to college, remember that all your lecturers, their main job is doing research. So they'd love to talk to you about that, and you could always get involved in it. So I did my second year, I did a UCLA neurology lab over the summer. Did some 2-photon calcium imaging, like the computational side. I loved it. If you could play that video, I don't know if it will work, but it's a video of induced pluripotent stem cells firing. So this is like some of the data that I was working with. So you can see the synchronous activity of them. So each one of those little white dots is a soma of a neuron, and you can see the dendrites and the processes going out. So I really loved it and I enjoyed it. But I kind of realized that I was a little bit more outgoing and wanted to do something more extroverted for my job. So I started getting involved in the clinical side. I decided to get my EMT certification in Arizona. So I came back and did it in 2 weeks. And I'm working now for an ambulance company. I absolutely love it. I think if you're going to med school, you need to keep in mind that you need clinical experience now, a lot of schools. And so whether that's going to be a medical scribe or volunteering at a hospital, I think one of the best ones is EMTing now because you get a lot of patient care interaction, but you also get paid for it decently well. So a few pictures of the ambulance I work for, me in the back with the gurney. I also joined research at Berkeley through the Center for the Economics of Psychedelics. And so they do a lot of cost effectiveness analysis on these new therapies that are coming out, psychedelic assisted therapies for PTSD, OCD, a lot of these disorders. And they're proved very effective. So like the newest trial for MDMA is the most effective first line treatment for PTSD. And so I'm currently the primary author on a paper from that lab, just a systematic review on the health effects of MDMA. So I think lastly, just interest, like kind of the two previous speakers said, definitely carry your interest in high school over into college. Your academics is not everything. And very quickly in college, you realize away from home, you have much more time available to pursue other stuff. So I would definitely pursue, like in Miss Nath, I think remembers this in high school, I was part of a club, the Azara branch, and we went out to downtown Phoenix and would give out food and water to the houseless populations. And I remember thinking that was an awesome club because in high school, I remember a lot of the clubs were kind of useless. They didn't really do much. It was just like a resume builder. And I got to Berkeley and that was very much the same thing. A lot of clubs that do a lot of consulting work and they look very good at resumes, but they're not really doing much. And so I found this club, the Undergraduate Street Medicine Outreach here at Berkeley, and I joined. That's a picture of me in the top right with one of the dogs of a houseless person. And we just go out and give out food and water and medical supplies to the houseless populations in Oakland. So I think it's super cool that you can find a lot of the similar interests and similar values wherever you go. And then the other one is a blood pressure project, which is basically we do the same thing, but we take blood pressures for the homeless population because a lot of them don't have, PCP, primary care physicians, to get their blood pressure monitored. And so they don't know they're at risk of heart attacks. They don't know they have high blood pressure. So we just basically will go out at events and get their blood pressure. A couple other photos. That's the lab I did at UCLA, the little mouse. They actually imaged two-photon imaging in the mouse's brain. So they actually have to do a surgery to put in the dye, and they put in a little disc. And that worm in the bottom left, that's a C. elegans worm. Each one of those little things that across is an axon. That's some new research I'm doing right now. And then that's just a graph from one of the studies on kind of the cost effectiveness of MDMA assisted therapy. So Yeah, that's me. I would say definitely it seems like a lot now, I know, for college application. But I think it all kind of in the end will be worth it, and you'll realize kind of in foresight that you'll end up in the right place for sure. If you put the time, and if you're here, obviously you're already doing the first step of putting in that time and making sure you know your options and how to apply.
So, Nevin, I mean, I have known you since forever. Would you like telling the audience about the part your project played, your science project? So you are the first group of students who won that ISEF competition. And I knew it was a COVID year, and I was on my phone and you and Ahana was screaming, "We snapped, we won." I'm like, what? So how was that experience? And what was it like writing grants for getting funding for those projects?
Yeah, so that's huge too. A lot of people, when you go into research, a big part of that research is not just that actual clinical part of, or not clinical, but wet lab part of doing it. There's a whole kind of administrative and bureaucracy behind research and how it goes. And that's a huge part in college, is knowing how to navigate that, especially if you know a little bit about it. Your professors who are researching will definitely take that kindly. So I had already gone through the experience of getting a $5,000 grant for my science project in high school. And it was on Tubular beetles and styrofoam, and it ended up actually going to ISEF. We got fourth place in the category for that. So not only I think was that a really good experience to talk about, and obviously my college applications, but I had the experience to work with an ASU professor on confocal microscopy. And now in my labs, like even in my senior year, we're now doing confocal imaging, and we're doing dyes and antibodies. And I remember I did that all. Like in high school, remember very vividly in Miss Nat's classroom, and I remember putting the slides and putting the wash and the PBS and doing all the stains. And now I'm doing that stuff in a lab that is, for research and for class credit. And I kind of have a one-up experience because I kind of remember a lot of this stuff and how to do it. So definitely the experiences in high school that you probably don't think matter that much, even if it was just like a lab that you did in maybe biology, it's going to come and help you out wherever you go. Like you kind of are building up, in a college an extension of your whole academic career.
No, thank you, Nevin. And I remember at one time my classroom had 9 aquariums with styrofoams of different concentrations. I still have those heating pads from how many, like 6 years back? Wow, that was quite and you guys all got it funded through the Arizona Recycling Coalition. So always experience matters, and you guys did a wonderful job with that. Thanks, Nevin. I think Xieshi is up. Xieshi?
Yes, hello.
Hey.
Wait, hold on. Oh, there we go. There's my video. Okay, cool. So, I am a student at UC Berkeley. I'm second year studying electrical engineering and computer sciences. That's a picture of me at Yosemite, I believe it was. Yeah, okay, perfect. Um, so as a sophomore, I would say, I probably would have given like kind of a different kind of presentation in my freshman year, because I think actually in the last like 3 weeks, right after classes starts, I think I'm getting like a new perspective on like, I guess, well, first of all, like the college experience, but also uh, like the college application process. If you don't know about like the intensity of UC Berkeley, studying electrical engineering and computer sciences at UC Berkeley is extremely difficult. Uh, and I feel like I didn't exactly experience that with my first year, but now I'm really starting to like being hit by the workload. And when you're out, there's only a few activities I feel like that stays with you as you keep moving through college. And I think that's an important part that's often overlooked by people, is that admissions officers want to see that, when you're dealing with an extremely stressful situation where you're exposed to a lot of different activities that you could do, they want to see you have a clearly defined interest that will shape exactly what kind of activity you will pursue throughout your college experience. So for me, uh, I've noticed, and I did not think about this consciously, but I noticed that one activity that stayed with me was teaching. So in the beginning, during high school, I mentor a lot of students in like my online clubs around like electrical engineering and mechanical engineering projects. And Miss Nath noticed that, and so I mentored for DRIPBL, one of the DRIPBL like project mentoring programs, where I mentored along with Miss Nath, I mentored a middle school student. We worked on a asthma prevention device that ended up getting patent pending process, and I think won several like research awards. So that continued when I when I came to UC Berkeley, and now I'm a teaching assistant for a student-run course called the Hands-on PCB Engineering Decal. And in the course, we basically do the same thing as that I did with Ms. Nath, where we mentor individual students into creating their first circuit board projects, and we also fund those projects, and we end up presenting those projects to Apple engineers. And just this last summer, I was a resident assistant mentor for pre-college, and that was really cool because I get to mentor a lot of students in their college application processes, and I get to read their essays. So I think the idea of like mentoring students, especially into creating something that they can touch and feel and end up actually using, is extremely useful. Another thing that I kept pursuing throughout college was research and innovation. So I think it was in junior year, I remember going to Ms. Nath, and I was like, I just found this paper about this really cool single-stranded DNA thing called aptamers. And I'm wondering, can I get into research with that? And Ms. Nath was like, what was aptamers? And so for some context, one of the pictures, it's like a diagram. So aptamers are single-stranded DNA molecules that are designed to bind specifically to a certain molecule, and they're designed to change their structure once they bind. So you can actually measure that change in structure with some electrical current that you run through it. And with that, if you put that sensor into sweat, you can see like what kind of molecules make up your sweat and what the concentration of those molecules are. So what's really useful is like actually hormone sensing, for example. So I found that really cool. I read that paper and I was like, we can use this to end up creating like a device that we can use to monitor our health in real time, and we can actually diagnose a lot of diseases with that. It's really cool if your Apple Watch can just tell you exactly like how much hydration or how much how tired you are, like your cortisol level, for example, right? So it's really cool that I ended up getting to, that was just an idea that I had with Ms. Nath, but it's really cool that now when I came to Berkeley, I ended up actually working with this in Chin Lab, where I combine my electrical engineering and all my bioengineering knowledges into creating a device that hopefully will end up sensing small biomarkers in sweat like I intended. So this kind of leads me to kind of an overarching theme of what I like to do, which I call making. So in high school, I made on the right, you can see like on the bottom right is a tensile testing machine, and that was kind of my main project in high school. I just made it for fun. I actually started it in 8th grade when I didn't know what to do for science fair, but it kind of grew into a project where I was trying to design a tensile testing machine that costed a lot less than commercial solutions. So basically, you test the tensile strength of things that you want, materials that you want to test. So that ended up being used by MIT researchers among various other universities. I also worked on a 3D printer at the time. So on the picture above the tensile testing machine to the right is the 3D printer. So I believe that it's really important to when you make things, it's really important to actually enjoy the things that you're making and be able to use it after. So for me, hopefully my future plans will involve like turning these ideas and these things I make into like education tech or biotech startups. So yeah, overarching theme, I make stuff, and then now I get to teach others in hopefully making stuff too.
Thank you, Xieshi. And I apologize. I still cannot get your name right. Dia says, Mom, it's not Xieshi, it's Shitsi. I'm like, okay. I've called him Xieshi for a long time. That's what's going to stick to it. But I do appreciate everything that you have done for other students in Triple. So the student that you work for now, he is in 10th grade now. And we still have to do the Xieshi for licensing it, right? But also, the 3D printer that you did, the tensile machine, the Zosia who tested it got an award last year at ICEF. And this last year, she was one of the top 3 students at ICEF as well. So you have helped others grow that mindset as well, where research is an integral part of that. Doesn't matter whether you fail or succeed, it's the thing that you have to try, right? So thank you. Thank you for that. So I have a lot of questions coming up for all of you, but let's finish this sooner or later. So I think Aayush, you are up next.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you. So like Ms. Nat said, my name is Aayush. I am a sophomore at Arizona State University. Um, I am doing the Biomedical Engineering 3+1 program, very similar to what Ben is, but at ASU. And I'm also on the pre-med route. And so I kind of want to talk a little bit about why I went to Arizona State University. Because initially, I won't lie, I applied to quite a few schools, and the college application is a little expensive. And after I kind of got all my applications, from like all the California schools, from all the other ones, I had some acceptances. But then I actually, kind of thought for a second, sat down and said to myself, what type of school do I want to really go to? And there's a couple of factors that played, like finances. When you're in pre-med, right, the entire process is going to be expensive. The med school applications are going to be thousands and thousands of dollars to get into a chance to get into med school, where you're going to take out loans, and those loans are going to stay with you until residency, where you get paid around $20 an hour for long days, and then you'll be able to make good money. And so, especially going into my college experience, I was like, okay, I want to make sure I'm not gonna, have a large amount of debt. That's definitely a big concern. And something that's really interesting that I don't think a lot of people understand about the pre-med is undergrad prestige does matter, but it does not matter a huge amount like law school or other items. I think when I was looking at Arizona State University, one of the biggest things that kind of caught me was how much there is around ASU. It is a big, big school. And I know it has, a different reputation than other type of high schools, but there's such a large academic community that is constantly growing. They have partnerships with Mayo, with Banner, with Barrow, with Honor Health. There is almost anything you want at like in the Tempe area. I found myself driving to almost every other medical facility because just of how much availability there is. And I'll talk more about a lot of the opportunities that are there. Another thing that is because when you have such an ASU that's such a big school, there are there's a lot more opportunities and a little bit less competition, which is really interesting because I was talking to one of my friends and she went to Brown University. And one of her biggest complaints was that it's nearly impossible for her to get involved in research because there's a high amount of volume of individuals. And kind of like in Rhode Island, there's not a lot of I guess hospitals are not a lot of, big areas just because of how small of a school it is. And so she was saying, yeah, I can't really get involved in research. I've tried to get into clinical and, there's a lot of competition. And so I think that's another big factor that's often overlooked is when you have a big, decently well-established school, you're going to have a lot more opportunities. And so the fact that, it was a lot more financially affordable and that also how well-established ASU is within the Phoenix, Arizona area and all the opportunities that I know are available, I decided to go Arizona State University because, they have a fairly good engineering program as well. And so kind of just going into ASU, I told myself the first thing I want to do is get involved in research. I love doing research when I worked under Miss Nat. She taught me how to do a lot of pipetting, a lot of PCR items, a lot of, gel electrophoresis, running gels, all of these things that, at the time I was like, why am I doing this? And then I applied to, Dr. Andrews' lab at ASU and I said, I have all of this experience. And she's like, that's great. We do a lot of that. And now all I ever do, it seems like the same stuff. I mocked Ms. Nat for teaching us. I do a lot of pipetting. I do a lot of qPCR, right? I'm going to be running Western blot soon. And so a lot of these like wet lab skills kind of just are really helpful and really useful. But I think what really set me apart, and I will talk, I can try to talk about this later more, is I sent about 20 to 30 emails like first semester, my freshman year. A lot of them were cold emails, me, asking professors, hey, I read through your research. I really like this. This is my experience. I think out of the 20, 30 emails that I sent, I got 6 or 7 responses. 4 to 5 of them were like, I'm out of town, or I'm not sure if we have availability, et cetera, et cetera. And, those are rejections that were very hard to take. But, Dr. Andrews said, if you truly are interested, why don't you come to a couple of lab meetings and show your commitment? And so that's what I did. For a couple of weeks, I showed my commitment. But the thing is, she never ever put me into research. And I was really confused, kind of like why. I didn't want to bother her because, she's very well established. And then, at lab meetings, I started speaking up and asking questions. And only then did she actually put me into a lab. And I realized so much of our college experience is defined by initiative. A lot of professors, a lot of individuals see a lot of students. And so you really need to set yourself apart. And when I did that, she, sent me, and I worked with a grad student on actual neural organoids. And so what exactly are neural organoids? Think of them like mini brains. And so we actually have patients who have autism and megacephaly. Megacephaly is where you have an enlarged brain. And there seems to be a large amount of comorbidity between the two. So we want to understand better why is that happening. So we actually take cells that are derived from patients who have autism and megacephaly, and then grow and cell culture them into these mini brains where we're able to characterize their DNA and protein concentration and see what type of dysregulation there are in the pathways. So we can see better targeted drugs and kind of just add to the pool of knowledge on these mechanisms. And so like I said earlier, a lot of the skills that I learned in wet lab have proved to be very useful. But I also have a really big passion for coding, a lot of, computation. And it's no secret that, the world we live in, you need to be somewhat familiar with computer science. And so that's kind of where I'm part of this Dr. Maley lab. And here I'm actually a team lead. And so what we do is we use R to visualize trends in cancer across species and being able to pull data from that. We have a huge data set with thousands of information of different species, different, their corresponding just the phylogenetic information and a lot of different phenotypes, and we're able to look a lot of like correlations. So something like, I was working on is survivorship curves, and eventually I'm going to be able to co-author another paper, and I'm also a team lead for something different where we're looking at body mass and like examining Peter's paradox, which kind of just says body mass and cancer don't actually have much of a correlation, and we're not sure why. And eventually I'm going to be first author on that paper as we work towards it. And like I said, this is a long application, but I'm really excited kind of to see where this goes. But another item I'm actually operations lead for React, which is a refugee and clinic team here at ASU. It is student run and partnered with the Mayo Clinic of Medicine. And we have a lot of med students, and we actually set up a lot of opportunities for people across the valley. We do education workshops where we teach refugees kind of a lot about the medical system here in America, a lot about the culture, a lot about like feminine hygiene, for example, which is not very, commonly known. We do a lot of health screenings here, because these individuals may not have always insurance, understand what type of medicine they should be looking for or how to take care of their health. And so we do these basic items that we can, and we get a lot of funding for it. We write grants. As operations lead, actually, I do a lot of heading for the grants, for the money. We have somewhere from like $30,000 to $60,000. We get more grants every single year, and we're able to utilize this money and be able to plan so we can give these refugees the care that they need as they come in here, and also have a better understanding of the population around us and how we can improve it. And so I kind of want to talk about these leadership positions that I have in the Melee Lab and the operations lead and other areas, because as a sophomore, it is slightly unconventional, but not impossible. And I think almost every single time I was interviewing for the lead, or when I was reached out to for being lead, they always said, Aayush, you showed that you went above and beyond. You were not afraid to ask questions, because in my head, sometimes I'm like, this is such a stupid question. But every time I say that, I genuinely mean it, and like, no one really cares. I see smiles light up whenever I ask a question, because no one expects you to ask a question. And so there's a lot of that. I would do a lot of stuff on my own time. I would show that commitment, saying, I did all of this. I want to do all of this. I would, say, I kind of want to push for this. And a lot of times I was shut down. I was told, this is clearly not the best next steps for you. But that's what I learned from. And I think a lot of that showed my resilience, my perseverance. And I'm able to, go into these leadership positions just because of that commitment. And lastly, as I am a biomedical engineering major, a huge part of I is I like to build. I think if I want to go into medicine, I should be able to understand the forefront of it. And it's no secret engineering is taking a bigger space. The Da Vinci robot, the surgical robots that, allow doctors to do, surgeries without actually being able to scrub in and do like other areas is like revolutionary. And it's not like there's a lot more biomedical engineering devices that are making things more minimally invasive, more convenient. And as a doctor, if I, as that's where I want to go, I want to be more aware of these items. And if I see problems, be able to address them myself. And so here you'll see there's a middle picture. I'm with I actually built a pediatric wheelchair with the Mobility Independence Foundation. And the issue that we were tackling was a lot of young individuals who tend to have the physical disabilities need a motorized wheelchair. But insurance companies require a driver's test, which is like, saying, do they know how to effectively drive this before we give you all the money that's necessary? But the thing is, you can't exactly prepare for a driver's test if you don't have a pediatric wheelchair to practice on. And so it was quite an issue. So what we were tasked with being able to create a guide for creating a pediatric wheelchair under $500. And so that's what you see me right next to is that wheelchair. And it's eventually going to get published on the Mobility Independence Foundation for other people who may be looking for this and being able to access the open source. I'm also now working with the Phoenix Children's Hospital and a nurse directly from there who has conveyed her frustrations with not having enough space when working in the PICU. And so I want to create a bedside table with her, and hopefully we'll be getting a patent in that in relatively the next year and a half. But I want to just talk a little more about kind of the opportunities that I see, because I know I talked a little earlier about all the partnerships that are available in the ASU area. And so you'll see that, the one I'm soon next to the poster, I did an internship here at TGen, which is in Phoenix, over the summer at the U of A College of Medicine, where I looked at biomarkers and alcoholism. The picture under that is the internship I also did at the Banner, where I was able to see where they have the blood and brain body donation program. And I'm holding, a slice of brain, which I was told I could take a picture of. So hence why I'm able to post it here. And so there's just a lot of opportunities out there, and I've enjoyed my time at ASU. Thank you.
Aayush, you should also talk about the 3D printing cube that you did for visually impaired people to increase cognition, remember? And I was intrigued as to what that is. I think it was for blind people.
Yeah. So this is something that was kind of like a fun project that I had for myself, where there's not a lot of games, not a lot of fun ways for like, young people who may have blindness or loss of vision to improve the dexterity, because a lot of individual, like when you're at a young age or when you even acquire blindness, it can be a really difficult transition. And I thought what would be a really fun way to, kind of gamify that. And so I created this little blind maze where you kind of have this little joystick and you can take it through the maze, but you actually don't need to actually be able to see the maze, because you can feel the walls around you as you use the joystick, and you're able to get from point A to point B. And so kind of having the tactile sense and the dexterity improvement would actually help strengthen, just a lot of the skills that are necessary as you transition to, accustoming to a blind life, especially for people who are younger.
And all of you, right? All five of you, I've known you in some capacity. Most of you were my students, but truly what you guys have done for yourselves from school to what you guys here are doing right now is amazing. And for me personally, it makes me feel really proud that you guys are thriving in your community. And all of you had been able to get into labs as early as freshman or sophomore years of college. That is something very, very hard, and putting yourself out there, being okay to be failing and feeling like failing, but also making sure that you don't give up is a big deal, right? So do you guys, I think we have a couple of questions for you guys. Well, let me see. Sarah, do you see any direct questions for them?
Well, there was a, excuse me, there was a question that was asking, and I think many of you could probably speak to this, but the question was for Srikanya. Srikanya, sorry, about how you approached professors about getting opportunities for doing the protein modeling. But I think the essence of the question is really getting at how did you approach professors to get these opportunities so early in your undergraduate career?
I will say I was a little bit luckier in the fact that Tulane already had a specific program that you could apply to, in which you were paired with a professor, but the professor kind of also had to choose you. But in my essay, in the specific opportunity, I talked a lot about my high school research, and I feel like the method of getting high school research is also very similar to the method of getting college research, which is finding topics you're interested about and then looking at research labs that kind of cover those interests and stuff. And that's when you cold email. However, I feel like most people approach cold emailing as just saying like, hi, I read your work is good, can I join? Which I feel like is very baseline. It's important to show interest in their work, kind of ask questions about their work in those emails. And like Aayush was mentioning, talking about your specific experiences that you could bring to the lab and different perspectives that you can also provide to their lab work. So you have to show a lot of passion and interest in their work, or else it's just going to be another email they toss away. But that's how I got research in high school, which helped me get research in college. But I'm sure other college students can talk a little bit about how they, if they did do cold emailing, how they also kind of saw that process.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say two things. One, look into if your college has a specific like undergraduate research program. I know at Berkeley we have something called URAP, which is Undergraduate Research Apprenticeship Program. And it's actually like a portal that the school puts out and professors put out their projects and you apply through it and then you get interviewed and you get class credit for it. So look, like I didn't realize that until my sophomore year. But really look, like I'm sure any college that you go to, I know ASU probably does, like look into those programs. And then the second thing is just office hours. Like you can cold email, and some people have success with that, but if they don't know you, it's not really going to help. So even if you're in like introductory classes, still go to their office hours and talk to them and be like, what research do you do if they do any? Even if it's not what you're interested in, because they're going to know people that are interested in what you may be in. So you should always, and even if you get like upperclassmen and become friends with them, ask them the office hours of their professors and show up to that. Like I've shown up to other professors that I don't even have their classes, just because their research kind of aligned with my interests. So definitely take advantage of that.
Yeah, and how does Ben, is this similar because I know that Nevin spoke about programs that are very similar to what we have at ASU. What about John Hopkins, Ben?
Yeah, so we kind of have a website called Forger One, that kind of accumulates all the data from like all the labs that are open and like operating. It doesn't really give you that much information, but essentially what I did was back when I was a freshman, I'm a junior now for reference. I used ChatGPT, which was like somewhat pretty new, so like it was kind of hard for people to like scope it out and like see like, oh, this email is probably created like that. But I would take kind of the professor or like the professors or kind of the PIs, principal investigators like research page. I would copy it. I would put it into ChatGPT. I had already given ChatGPT like my resume and like some like stuff about me. And then I'd have it create an email. The PI who I connected with, he currently wears cochlear implants, and I used to play rugby, and I've ruptured my eardrums a few times. So I'd mentioned like or ChatGPT, I guess I'd mentioned like like I'm interested in like how we can, manipulate, I guess, like language models and how like, I don't know, how language models can interpret like language differently based on like accent or based on like clarity. And I guess, yeah, that worked out good. He was interested in rugby as well. So I think that's really why, it's the small things that matter. Like, you could love the research, but at the end of the day, I think it's always good to try to find some common ground with your PI or whoever's recruiting you.
And we don't have too much time. Quickly, all of you guys are, so except Nevin and Xieshi, you guys are both in Berkeley. Tell us about the environments that you guys, because a lot of people want to go to Berkeley but are not aware of outside of the environment in the university. What is it like? Because I have heard a lot of stories about what's outside.
Yeah.
So
I
Yeah,
think,
oh,
sorry.
yes, Ben, go for it.
Oh, okay. For Hopkins, it's a very isolated community, I would say, especially for medicine. We have Johns Hopkins Medical Institute, and we have our main campus, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, and we don't like students usually don't get out very much. I think partially because it's pretty dangerous. Students get robbed like on campus sometimes by Baltimoreans, I guess. So that's probably a pretty big reason why Hopkins students are pretty highly targeted by people, I guess, yeah, by people that live around campus since it's not in the best community.
What about Berkeley, Xieshi, Nevin?
So I think, what you said about having stories from a lot of people is kind of accurate in terms of you can have a variety of experiences at Berkeley because of how big of a school it is. You can get into a lot of clubs and do a lot of work with clubs. You can do a lot of industry related stuff, or you can do a lot of research. So or some people are involved in startups. So UC Berkeley actually has a startup a startup incubator program that actually gives you like $500,000 in funding. So people are involved in different things, and you can pretty much find any group that you want to work with or be with, and do that. So I think diversity is what I would say.
Nevin, what do you say about the environment around the university?
Yeah, I was at first, I was used to kind of the typical college where you kind of have everything within one spot and you live on campus and all the Greek rows on campus. And so when I first came to Berkeley, it was a little weird because we actually don't have any on-campus housing. It's just the campus and it's right in the middle of the city. So I actually have come to love it because someone told me when I toured the first time, they said, it's nice having that enclosed community your freshman and sophomore year, but by junior or senior, you're going to be bored of it and you're going to want to explore. So I personally love being in a place where I'm 30 minutes from San Francisco and I'm 10 minutes from downtown Berkeley, because I can kind of be a part of the community and do stuff outside of the college. So it's definitely, I think, a good opportunity to have other stuff nearby. So that was a decision that kind of went in for me. I liked being a part of a broader community, not just the college there.
Thank you. Srikanya, what about yours? How do you feel away from home, freshman?
I mean, it is super new, but I knew I wanted a more independent experience for college. There is this perception around Tulane that it's a super duper party school, and it is, but also the students work incredibly hard here. It's that work hard, play hard type of situation here, and people also expect that the workload is not too much in Tulane, but it's incredibly insane. I mean, Tulane is also an R1 research institute too, so there's always a lot of research going on and everything. And I really like the kind of explorative aspects of Tulane. You get to explore different different academic interests. I, for example, I'm taking a financial accounting class this semester, something which is so different from my other academic interests, but I knew I wanted financial literacy and maybe even a minor in business too. So kind of having that flexibility has been super cool. I will say the culture is kind of new to me coming from Arizona, but is Sarah raising her hand? Did you want to ask a question?
Oh no,
yeah, Sarah.
I was just gonna go after
okay.
you. I was just gonna.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
No, yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's a different experience, something I'm getting used to, but it's fun.
Go ahead, Sarah.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I'm Sarah. I'm also one of the head people over at DRIPBL. So I just wanted to say hi. And then I also wanted to kind of give a summary of what's going on in the chat before we end with Rashna giving some amazing information over here on the slides. There's some really great questions that are getting answers in the chat, so please do check those out. And one thing that's definitely coming up as a big theme is from all these amazing students is just try things, right? So in your undergraduate, try things, be a leader, and also take as much opportunities as you can. And one type of programs that do exist but aren't at all institutions they're called co-ops. They're called cooperative education or programs or cooperative experiential programs. Places kind of have different names for them, but I put a link in the chat, and these are really great experiences where you essentially work at the same time while you're in your undergraduate degree. And so this is a nice opportunity, and I don't necessarily think that the universities that these amazing people are attending have them, but these are really good schools that also have these types of programs that lead to higher pay after you graduate, and also let you try out new things in a work environment, not necessarily just in a research environment as well. Because we had questions about, getting into industry, what types of degrees are required, what are the different general ideas. And so, starting research as a high schooler is really a great idea, and you can get a little more of insight from these students. And I think Rashna can explain a little more about that right now.
And absolutely, I mean, we are over time, but very quickly, if any of you want to speak with the students in details, there is a sign up QR code for a link that we have in our website. You guys can get individual sessions with them and talk about whatever you want with them during that experiences of how did they do their college applications, how did it go, how much scholarships they have won. And you can get to us through this particular QR code as well. It's a WhatsApp group. So if you join us, we'll direct you guys to find their contact information so that you can get more information. So I do see a couple of other questions in the chat, and just because we are out of time, I would have you guys please join this WhatsApp group first, and then I will direct the questions to them. Sarah, if you want, so I think Ben, you are the host. Can you go to the previous slide quickly? And that's the QR code for getting those sessions scheduled for these students. There are many more students in that program that, depending on the program they are in and the college that they're attending, if you guys want to talk about it because you don't want to make a mistake of getting to the wrong college, these are kids that I have known personally. So I can definitely vouch for them and absolutely love them. So if you want to talk, please sign up quickly and also connect with us so that we can direct any inquiries to them as well. Okay. And thank you guys so much, Srikanya, Nevin, Aayush, Ben, Xieshi. Truly appreciate all of you. And we will continue to work on these workshops. In particular, if we get a demand on a particular school, we'll bring you guys up again. But for now, I know time is value and money. So thank you guys. We'll reach out to you guys soon again. Bye.